Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we're discussing some pretty exciting news coming out of the San Jose Sharks camp today, and that is that they have re-signed restricted free agent defenseman Henry Thrun to a 2-year deal worth $1 million each season. He was actually one of the last restricted free agent holdouts on the San Jose Sharks, with the last one, of course, being Thomas Bordeleau, which makes a lot of sense considering his future with the organization is very much up in the air, with a spot in the lineup next season being very far from secure. But when it comes to Henry Thrun, the organization put a significant amount of trust into him this past season, or at least former head coach David Quinn did, that even through all of his inconsistencies that he showed throughout that year, he was getting a constant stream of ice time. And you might be thinking, well, David Quinn is no longer with the team, but the Sharks' new head coach, Ryan Warsofsky, was assistant coach last season and actually had a very close relationship with Henry Thrun because he was the assistant coach who was responsible for the Sharks' defense, which means if Quinn showed a lot of trust in Henry Thrun, it is quite likely that Warsofsky was kind of backing him up in that case. So even with the addition of Jake Walman, which has created a bit more bloat in the Sharks' defense, Walman likely find themselves at least currently above Thrun in the Sharks' left-handed defenseman depth charts, it is still a good chance for Thrun to be on the roster come the beginning of this next season. He would have to play himself out of that spot through the preseason and training camp for him to not find himself on that starting lineup. Now, when it comes to this deal, $1 million is pretty much exactly in line with what I thought Henry Thrun would get. There was very little reason for him to actually get paid more than that because of the fact of those inconsistencies last season were quite apparent for everybody involved. 2 years as well is an interesting bet that Thrun is making on himself. Perhaps doesn't feel as though that after 1 year he's going to be playing well enough to actually get himself a big longer term contract, and that he needs 2 years to really ramp up into this. And in terms from a Sharks perspective, this is a very good deal for them. It pretty much carries zero risk because even if Thrun doesn't work out as a player, you're down $1 million each season for the next 2 years, which is extremely short term, at least in the grand scheme of things, and $1 million is very, very low value. So you have extremely little risk involved, and the reward can be massive. Last season, while it was extremely up and down in terms of his play, when he was actually up, when he was actually playing well, Thrun was the best defenseman on the San Jose Sharks for an extended period of time. He was showing himself as an extremely serviceable top 4 defenseman that if he can carry that over these next 2 years when the Sharks are absolutely in desperate need of solid defensemen, that would end up being a massive move for San Jose and a fantastic contract for them as well. Now, when it comes to Henry Thrun, remember he was originally drafted by the Anaheim Ducks, playing in the NCAA, and seemed to elect to try and go through his senior year to become an unrestricted free agent. He did not want to sign with Anaheim, primarily because the Ducks had a bunch of other defensive prospects in their prospect pool who were above Thrun in the depth charts, and so Thrun didn't really see a path to the NHL remaining with Anaheim. And a big reason for why he signed with San Jose is because the Sharks' defensive prospect pool at that time was pretty much barren. He would immediately become the number 1 guy, and we can see he used that to good effect because he is now playing in the NHL pretty much instantly after signing his contract. But over these last couple of seasons, the Sharks have improved that area of the organization. They got Shakir Mukhamadullin, they drafted Sam Dickinson, and also even players like Luca Cagnoni, Celine Wallenius, who was just drafted as well as Eric Polkamp, who made a big impression at development camp. Suddenly there are a lot more names here in the Sharks' prospect pool on the defensive side of things. And so while Henry Thrun does have a couple of years head start on those players, he does need to start making a name for himself in the Sharks roster. If this level of inconsistent play continues over the 2 years of this contract, it is no telling whether or not he will be able to get another one, because by then it is perhaps possible that the Sharks will have a lot more defensemen involved in their roster. They may even draft one at this upcoming entry draft at the end of the next season. So Thrun's spot is not anywhere near secure over these next couple of years, but if he can actually play well, this is an opportunity for him to really roll with it, and we shall see if he manages to do so. Class dismissed.